I still hear the crack when I close my eyes, the sound of my front bumper kissing the iron gate. My daughter Lacey was behind the wheel that night, home 2 weeks from prison, and swearing she'd be gentle with my old blue Camry. The gate was fine. The car wasn't. My heart, it took the worst of it. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon, as we have new stories every day. Like and let us know in the comments which city you're watching from. The next morning, I found the Camry angled in my driveway like it had been parked by a drunk raccoon. A spiderweb of cracks ran across the headlight, the passenger mirror hung from a wire, blinking like an eyelid. Lacey was inside, snoring on my couch, the scent of strawberry-scented vape. I'm Marian. Most folks call me Mary. I'm 66, retired cardiac unit secretary and a widow for 6 years. Lacey came home from Dayton Correctional on June 12, 2023, with a paper bag of clothes and a promise. "I'm done, Mom." I wanted to believe it so badly it hurt. She'd been pretty once, with a smile that hooked up a little crooked like mine, but the years had made their edits. She had a new boyfriend, Trevor, who she called T, a man who wore cologne thick as syrup and a baseball cap straight out of some vape shop's merch bin. He hovered like a shadow, though I only saw him twice at first, always at the curb, always glancing at his phone. The night of the gate, Lacey said she only went to Kroger for milk. "They moved the gate back a foot, swear," she said, holding a bag of crushed mini donuts like a peace offering. "It jumped at me." She laughed, a dry little laugh. "Come on, Mom, it's a dent." I took a picture. I take a lot of pictures now. Insurance had taught me that when Harold died, and I had to track every bill, every notice. The timestamp on the photo said 2:13 a.m. I could see the HOA gate camera in the corner of the image. "We'll need to report this." I said, "You don't have a license, Lace. Not until your probation officer clears it." She rolled her eyes. "So call your HOA. They love you, Mrs. Cookies and Quilt." The gate was fine. The car wasn't. My heart, it took the worst of it. The following week, my bank notified me of an attempted charge for $479.99 at a tire place in Fairfield, declined because my debit card is set to text me for anything over $100. I keep things tight. Widow's habit. I texted Lacey, "Where are you?" and got back, "Don't freak, Mom. I'm fixing your car. That's love." The word love landed like a slap. At home that night, I made chicken and small green beans in my skillet the way Harold liked. Lacey pushed the beans around her plate, then took a call in the hallway. "No, we can't until stop. I said I'll get the papers." "Papers?" 2 days later, a letter came from Maple Run HOA. Notice of fine, $250 for damage to gate arm, $75 for improper guest parking in the fire lane. I stood at my mailbox and felt my blood ring in my ears. Lacey had parked in the fire lane? "Mom," Lacey balked when I showed her the letter. "It's just a fine. I'll pay you back when Trevor's check clears." "What check?" "For the job," she said it quickly. "The kitchen refacing gig up in Mason, cash. He doesn't like to go through banks." I looked at the photo on the HOA letter. The camera had, yours truly, the Camry's plate like a confession. "We need to meet with the board," I said, "and you're not driving this car again." She clicked her tongue. "You love that stupid car more than me." "I love you both," I said quietly, "but the car doesn't lie to me." I scheduled the appeal. I keep a calendar by the phone with big blue numbers and little notes like choir, alto rehearsal, 6:30, and Owen, spelling bee, 3 o'clock. I set out my white cardigan to look composed. The day before the HOA meeting, another letter arrived, this one with a window that said Hamilton County Recorder. Inside, a courtesy notice that a quitclaim deed had been submitted for recording, transferring my property to Whitaker Holdings, LLC. The document was stamped received, but not yet accepted, pending verification. The signature on the deed said Marion E. Whitaker, my full name. The E looked like someone trying on a shoe that didn't fit. I sat at my kitchen table with that letter open like a wound. Harsh, cheap printer ink smell. Who would? My eyes went to my purse, where my checkbook lived, to the cookie tin of receipts, to the manila folder marked mortgage paid that I'd kept for the joy of it, then to Lacey's half-open bedroom door, where a pile of thrifted clothes and a crumpled Waffle House receipt lay like a still life.
I called the recorder's office. A woman named Denise spoke softly, like she'd had too many of these calls. "Ma'am, we send these notices to prevent fraud. You'll want to come in, bring ID, and we can place a flag on your parcel. And please call your bank." My hand shook when I dialed the bank. I spoke to a man in the fraud unit named John, who sounded like he wore sensible shoes. He said, "Mrs. Whitaker, I'm going to put an alert on your accounts, and I need you to check for any unusual activity. Also, any chance someone close to you would have your social security number?" "Not unless she rummaged in my desk," I said, staring at the drawer where Harold's stamps and my W-2s live. That night, I made a list on a yellow legal pad. Locks, change them. Car, hide the keys. Documents, move to safe deposit at Fifth Third. Lacey came home at 11 with a bag of tacos and a quick smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Trevor says hi," she chirped. "He says you're strong, Mary. He likes strong women." "I'm not his friend," I said. "I'm your mother. We need to talk." We didn't talk. She took a shower and left the towel on the floor. I picked it up, automatically, as if that ritual might tie us back together. In bed, I set my phone to vibrate only if Lacey texted. She didn't. The HOA boardroom is a bright place with framed photos of landscaping projects and laminated rules about recycling. I wore my cardigan and brought a neat folder, photos of the car, the letter, a copy of the letter from the recorder's office. The board chair, a woman named Gina with a platinum bob, directed us to sit. Her lips were soft-pressed like an iron. "Mrs. Whitaker," Gina began, "our camera captured your car. Was that you driving?" "My daughter. She just came home from prison. She made a mistake, and she'll make it right." Lacey, beside me, crossed her arms. "The gate jumped out at me," she said. A small laugh skittered around the room. "Any reason you parked in the fire lane?" Gina asked, eyebrow up. "We were unloading," Lacey emphasized. Groceries." I swallowed. Groceries. She slid a printout across the table. The timestamp read 2:08 to 2:36 a.m., and the frame showed two figures smoking by the Camry, one with a baseball cap. The caption, "Fire lane, no stopping." My jaw tightened. "I'll pay the fine," I said. "We also received a call," Gina added, "from someone claiming to be you, asking what name to put on the file for a deed transfer. We didn't give that information, obviously, but be careful." She glanced at Lacey, then back at me, apologetic. It felt like being dunked into cold water. I took a breath and folded my hands. I said, "Thank you for telling me. I will." After the meeting in the parking lot, Lacey hissed, "You embarrassed me." "You embarrassed me?" My voice surprised me. It came out level, like when I used to call doctors at 3 a.m. for stat orders. "Someone is trying to take my house." "It's Trevor's idea," she blurted, then clapped her hand to her mouth. I blinked. She looked small suddenly, like the little girl who used to crawl into bed when thunder tore the night. "He said a limited liability something, that it's safer if it's in a company because of your age, for insurance." "And you believed him?" "You never gave me anything," she snapped, and walked away so fast I could see her calf muscles bunch and release like she was outrunning a wolf. The next morning, I did 3 things. First, I went to Fifth Third and rented a safe deposit box. I put in my deed, passport, and Harold's B-52 squadron photo because looking at his smile steadied my hands. Second, I drove to the Hamilton County Recorder's office and met Denise. She helped me file a property fraud alert and handed me a form to challenge the submitted deed. She said, We'll flag anything with your parcel number, tapping a keyboard. Third, I called Adult Protective Services. It felt dramatic, like outing your own blood, but the woman on the phone said, "You're not betraying her. You're protecting yourself and possibly stopping someone from exploiting an elder. This is what we do." I came home to find my cookie tin of receipts on the table, open like a mouth gasping for air. Lacey sat there with a pen, circle marks on Harold's old oil change receipts. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Budgeting," she said, too quickly. "I want to help." "You can help by returning whatever information you took." She snapped the tin shut. "You never trust me." "I trust my eyes." I lifted the rug under the sink, where I had left the Camry keys because old habits are hard to junk, and found nothing but a dark impression where they'd been. Lacey left that night and didn't come back. I found out where she had gone when an email popped up from my State Farm agent. Claim opened, 2008 Toyota Camry. Total loss? My mouth dried. Attached was a photo of my Camry at the edge of a ravine off a county road, nose down like a penitent, trunk open to the sky. The timestamp read 3:32 a.m. The police report snippet: driver fled the scene, vehicular damage, oil slick. I felt my heart ride up to my throat, and then down, like a train cresting a hill. I called Lacey, straight to voicemail. "It's Mom," then, "It's Mary," because sometimes that feels less loaded. "Please call me. I just want to hear your voice."
It rained that afternoon, a real Midwestern drum roll, and I watched it from my porch with a mug of tea. The hydrangeas bowed in unison like ladies curtsying. Somewhere a child laughed. The world keeps going, whether or not your car is at the bottom of a ditch. APS came the next day with a social worker named Corrine who had kind eyes and a tote bag stuffed with pamphlets. She took notes, asked me for names, times, receipts, yes, even screenshots. "People love screenshots," she said gently, and I managed to laugh. We filed a report with the sheriff's office. She told me Ohio is a one-party consent state for recordings. I tucked that away like a seed. The bank fraud unit called back. "John here," he said. "We've blocked a HELOC application in your name. The notary listed works out of a UPS store in Fairfield. Do you know a Trevor Hale?" My stomach did a flip. "He is my daughter's boyfriend." "His name is connected to the LLC that attempted to receive the transfer," John said. "We're forwarding this to our legal department and the State Attorney General's Consumer Division. Please be cautious." It felt like the room tilted a tiny bit, like a boat's deck underfoot. I clicked my teeth together until the feeling passed. That afternoon, a text from Lacey. "Mom, don't freak. I'll fix everything. Tea got in too deep." She added a heart, then deleted it. I saw the message deleted line and wished, for the first time, that texts were written in ink and had to be crossed out where you could see the effort. A minute later, "Can you meet at Waffle House on Cincinnati-Dayton Road, 3 p.m.? No cops?" At 3, I slid into a Waffle House booth, my purse pressed to my hip like it could gossip. I ordered coffee, black. Lacey arrived in a hoodie that didn't zip all the way, hair pulled tight, eyes cutting around the room. Trevor came too, though I hadn't invited him. He slid into the booth and smiled like a shark who's read a book about smiling. "You're the famous Mary," he said. "I'm the one whose name is on the deed. And the Camry title." His smile flattened. Lacey's hands fluttered on the menu. She whispered, "T said he can fix it. He knows a notary." "That's the problem," I said. I set my phone on the table and nudged the record button under the napkin, telling myself I was doing the right thing, not for a moment letting myself feel like a spy in my own life. Trevor leaned back. "We were just trying to protect the asset. If the house is in an LLC, it's safer. We can leverage it for a small wine, help Lacey get on her feet. You'd get your equity back, promise." I did know what he meant. More importantly, my phone knew, quietly, on the table. "None of that will be necessary," I said. "I've spoken to the county recorder, the bank, APS, and the sheriff's office. I have a flag on my parcel. Any attempt to record will trigger a call." Lacey stared at me, a child again for a split second. "Mom," she whispered, and there it was, the tiny sheaf of wheat in the drought, the glint of the girl who used to practice the alto line with me in the car.
Trevor stood up. This was a waste of time. He threw a 20 on the table, theatrically. For your coffee. Don't forget your tip, I said, a reflex of 1,000 diner meals. He leaned down close. I smelled that thick cologne, something cheap trying to be rich. You think you're cute, he said. You won't be when you're old and alone, Mary. I'm already old, I said, but I am not alone. Lacey looked between us. She didn't leave with me. That night, I set a chair under the front knob and slept with the phone under my pillow. The Camry's absence sat in the driveway like a missing tooth, raw and noticeable. I went to choir rehearsal and sang the alto line to How Can I Keep From Singing, and my voice shook on the high notes, but it came back stronger. A voicemail pinged. Ms. Whitaker, this is David from the Ohio State Secretary of State Notary Commission. We received a complaint forwarded by the bank about a notary whose log may not match the time of notarization on a deed. We may require a statement from you. Proof. A pin of light in a long tunnel.
I started a binder. It's something I know how to do. There's a comfort to orderly pages, an index, tabs. I labeled it House, Car, Lacey, and put everything in. The HOA letter, the recorder flag, the bank emails, the State Farm photos, a printout of Trevor's Whitaker Holdings LLC formation record from the Secretary of State's website, filed June 3, 2023. Clever boy. I added a timeline. I copied texts. I even printed an Instagram story Trevor had posted of a flashy afternoon at a strip mall, captioned Paperwork Day with my queen, with a boomerang of a notary stamp thumping. The timestamp on the post put him at the Fairfield UPS store at 7:18 p.m. on July 10, right when my choir sign-in sheet had my signature recorded at St. Luke's 10 miles away. I called our choir director, Janice, and asked for a photo of the sign-in sheet. She sent it, time marked. I added it to the binder with a paperclip and a sticky note. Alibi. I wasn't the only one gathering. Corinne from APS called to say the sheriff's office had a detective specializing in elder financial exploitation who wanted to speak with me. We scheduled for Thursday morning. I made lemon bars. When you're my age and your mother was a nurse, you offer food when people come to your house to talk about hard things. It helps. Stay till the end. I'll show the truth. Detective Vargas wore a navy blazer and a black ponytail. She shook my hand firmly and looked around with an appreciative eye at my quilt on the sofa and the tidy kitchen. You have good light in here, she said, which I liked. I handed her the binder. This is everything, I said. I'm not trying to be dramatic, Detective. I know Lacey has done wrong, but I also know she is my daughter. We'll focus on the facts, Vargas said. Love and facts can coexist. They're messy roommates, but they can share a kitchen. We went through it page by page. I poured coffee and set out the lemon bars. She asked precise questions. Who, when, what? I told her how Lacey used to drive with the windows down even in winter. How she called me mama when she wanted something. How she learned all my hiding places without asking. I confessed the thing I never said out loud, that sometimes I kept my car keys under the sink in a Tupperware labeled rice because I knew she wouldn't look in anything boring. Smart, she said. You'd be surprised how many criminals are allergic to boring. She flipped to the notary page. We're going to subpoena the notary's journal and the UPS store cameras and the HOA gate footage. With your permission, we'll also export your recording from the Waffle House. John at the county prosecutor's office loves a tidy package. I nodded. I want whatever is fair. Fair can be complicated, she said, not unkindly. On Saturday, the HOA sent another notice. Delinquent, fine now $325 with late fee. I wrote a check, wrote 4-piece on the memo line, and mailed it. I could not fight on every front all at once. On Sunday, at church, Janice asked if I might share a testimony about perseverance next month. I said, maybe. After service on my porch, Owen ran circles around my hydrangea bush while my son-in-law Dylan, married to my older daughter Brooke, assembled a new motion light above the garage. We'll keep raccoons and men named Trevor away, he said lightly. Are those two separate categories? I asked, and he grinned. I slept better with the new light. Still, at 2:06 a.m., a different kind of light woke me, blue and red splashing the walls.
I peered through the blinds. A sheriff's cruiser idled at the curb. Lacey stood in the beam like a deer, hands out, face gray. Trevor was nowhere. I opened the door before the knock. "I'm her mother," I said. "Miss Whitaker," Vargas said from behind the deputy. "We've got to ask Lacey a few questions." I pulled my cardigan tight. Lacey wouldn't meet my eyes. "It wasn't me," she whispered. "T needed the car. He said just leave it and run." I swallowed. "I know." They didn't handcuff her, not then. Vargas explained they wanted a statement. Lacey climbed into the cruiser like a girl to a bus on her first day of school, stiff with a new backpack, not sure where to look. The car pulled away, washing my living room with patrol light that made everything look like a stage set. By Tuesday, the county recorder officially rejected the deed as fraudulent. Denise called triumphant, but practical. She said they tried to resubmit with a different notary, but the parcel flag did its job. Also, the Secretary of State is suspending the notary pending an investigation into his journal. He didn't log that deed. Big no-no. I baked cornbread in my cast iron skillet to keep my hands busy. The smell filled my house and held my chest together. I put aside a square for Lacey in the Tupperware container we used when she was a teenager and would eat late after choir or practice. I labeled it Lacey, no nuts. Old habits are hard to forget. A week later, Vargas called again. "We have enough to charge Trevor with forgery and attempted theft. Lacey is complicating. She may be charged as well, but there's a diversion program if she cooperates. The prosecutor wants to talk plea options." I nodded into the phone. "If she tells the truth, does that help her?"
It does. She paused. "I know that matters to you." I set the phone down and looked at the Tupperware. The condensation on the lid made tiny beads that looked like pearls. I put it back in the fridge. On August 7th, I received a certified letter, grand jury subpoena, testify regarding property fraud. I signed the green card and slid the envelope under my binder's front flap. On the same day, State Farm declared the Camry a total loss, $3,400, minus my deductible. The adjuster apologized for the oil slick cleanup charge. I apologized for his job. The day before I was due to testify, my doorbell rang. I checked the motion camera. Lacey. Alone. I opened the door, but left the chain on. "I can't let you in," I said. She chewed the corner of her sweatshirt sleeve. "I know," she said. Then, shivering in the August heat, "Will you love me if I testify?" "Testifying is loving the truth," I said. "It's loving yourself back to something solid." "Yes." She cried without sound. Her face crumpled like paper and then smoothed. She handed me an envelope. Inside, a note. "Mom, I'm sorry about the car. I tried to fix things. I broke them worse." And a metal key to a storage unit. He made me keep stuff for him in case. There are documents, maybe money. We stood there with the chain between us like a silver vein. I wanted to unhook it and fold her into my arms and make grilled cheese like she was 11 again. Instead, I nodded, once, because if I moved too much, I'd spill. I said, "Detective Vargas will meet me there." Lacey took a step back. She said, I will. I'm tired of running." The storage unit smelled like dust and tired cardboard. Vargas lifted file boxes onto a dolly while I read labels written in Trevor's scratch. Appliances, receipts, tools, client contracts, and one that simply said personal. We opened that one. Inside, notary stamps, plural, a refill ink pad, 3 driver's licenses with Trevor's face and different names, and a thick stack of blank deed forms. Vargas exhaled through her nose. "This is more than a boyfriend with bright ideas. This is a business." We photographed everything. The overhead light hummed like a bad thought. When she lifted a folder labeled WHLLC, we found a draft lease for my house. The house I was sitting in, surrounded by quilts and lemon bars and choir sheet music, with Trevor listed as landlord and a start date of August 15th. There was even a draft eviction notice, with my name typed in the tenant line. My knees went cold, then warm. "Evidence," Vargas said, "and a very bad mistake by Mr. Hale." As we rolled the dolly out, my phone buzzed. A voicemail. Trevor, his voice oiled and thin. "You think you're safe with your binders and your church friends? I always land on my feet. Lacey is mine." He laughed a little. "Bet your cookies burn." I saved it. I went home. I laid my quilts out on the line because the day was bright and breezy, and I wanted the sun to bless something. The grand jury heard me on a Wednesday. I wore my funeral dress because it fit and because it made me stand taller. I told them how my Camry looked in the early morning light, bruised and embarrassed, how the deed letter arrived like a cold front, how my daughter held a menu with shaking fingers while a man practiced sentences about LLCs. I did not cry. I did not rage. I was a woman at a kitchen table, placing facts in a row. When I left the courthouse, Vargas squeezed my shoulder. She said, "You did good. We'll keep pushing." That night, as the sky turned the deep blue of a choir robe, I wrote Lacey a letter. I wrote, "Lacey, you broke my car, and you cracked my heart. But hearts are meant to be used, and sometimes that means they show wear. If you want me, I'm here. If you want Trevor, I'm not. Choose sturdy. Choose boring. Boring gets you to choir and back." I put the letter in my cookie tin, labeled Lacey, August. The indictment came 2 weeks later. Trevor, forgery, attempted theft, identity fraud, notary misconduct as an accessory. Lacey, complicity reduced by cooperation, plus a drug possession count from a traffic stop Vargas hadn't told me about because she hadn't wanted to pile on. The prosecutor offered Lacey a plea with drug court and restitution in exchange for testimony. I watched the September light slide across my dining table and thought about revenge and forgiveness. Maybe revenge is sometimes a neat set of tabs in a binder, names aligned, pages in order. Maybe forgiveness is a Tupperware of cornbread waiting in the fridge, just in case. On the day of Trevor's arraignment, I parked, not in the fire lane, in the county garage and walked the long hall to courtroom 4B. The air in there is always the same, overconditioned, faintly metallic, like the breath of an elevator. Trevor wore an orange jumpsuit that looked shockingly like a hunting vest, his capless head a surprise. Without the hat and the cologne cloud, he looked smaller, like he'd been rinsed dry.
Lacey sat on the other side with her public defender, hair pulled back, eyes big. She was in street clothes and holding the strap of her purse like it might fly away. When she saw me, she didn't smile, but she didn't look away. The judge set bail Trevor couldn't meet. The notary, whose name turned out to be Kyle Fishman, a man with a neck tattoo hidden poorly under his collar, pleaded out early and lost his commission, permanently, and agreed to testify. Trevor's face when that was read into the record was a flicker you might miss if you didn't know him. Annoyance, then calculation, then something like fear. After court, I sat in the hallway and watched people. A woman in scrubs rubbed her temples. A teenager in a suit too big for him kicked his heel softly against a chair leg. Life goes on. I took out a granola bar and broke it in half as if I were sharing with someone. Old habits. Lacey's attorney approached. "Ms. Whitaker, I'm Maya. Your daughter would like you at her intake for the drug court program. It's voluntary, but it helps to have family." She looked at my shoes. "You seem steady." I sing alto. Altos are the steady ones. Drug court meant in the basement of a building that still smelled like the cafeteria lunches it had once served. They explained the program, testing, counseling, a sponsor, group sessions, community service, a restitution plan. It's hard. It's also a chance. Lacey signed. Her hand shook only at the end, on the why. Keep watching. There will be justice. While the criminal case did its slow march, motions, dates, forms, I pursued the civil side of what he'd tried to do to me. The title company that insured my deed sent a claims adjuster named Brooke. My older daughter hates that coincidence, but here we are. She was tenacious, with a pen that clicked like a metronome. "We're filing a quiet title action as a prophylactic," she said briskly. "It seals the rejection of those fraudulent filings. Also, the county recorder is implementing a stronger identity verification for any re-recordings on flagged parcels. You started something good, Ms. Whitaker." I didn't intend to start anything. I only intended to keep what I had. Meanwhile, Maple Run HOA sent me a tentative apology. We appreciate your cooperation and prompt payment, which is HOA speak for, we see you're not the chaos here. I still replaced my mailbox numbers to be extra compliant. Beige vinyl, numbers clean and centered. When the world feels unpredictable, everyone 50 knows to straighten the throw pillows. One morning, a plain white envelope appeared in my mailbox, no return address. Inside, a copy of an estimate from a contractor Trevor often name-dropped, Mason Kitchens LLC, showing a kitchen refacing for a Mrs. L. Dalton in Liberty Township. The estimate listed cabinets at $22,000, labor $8,500, consultation fee $2,000. Numbers inflated like a parade balloon. I called the number at the bottom. A tired voice answered, "We're not taking on new work." I said, "This is Mrs. Whitaker. I'm dealing with a man named Trevor Hale who has perhaps used your company's name." A pause. Then, "We don't know him. He used a tut-up screenshot of our logo. Ma'am, I got 2 customers last month telling me they thought we were his partner. We almost filed a complaint. Would you like to? I have a detective who would love more information." By lunch, Detective Vargas had an email from that company and 2 more homeowners who found my number through a neighborhood Facebook group where I'd posted a careful note asking if anyone else had been pressured to sign assignment of benefits documents or let a friend's notary stamp something without reading it. The stories piled gently, like quilts folded in the hall closet. No graphic horror, just ordinary harm. A retired bus driver who signed what he thought was an estimate but turned out to be a lien. A widow charged a $600 design fee for a free consultation she hadn't asked for. Trevor didn't specialize. He was an opportunist. Pattern evidence. Detective Vargas sounds satisfied. The AG's consumer division loves a pattern. And it helps. If we can, we'll get restitution for everyone. Lacey's sponsor was Evelyn and wore pink tennis shoes with her business casual skirts. She stopped by one evening to meet me. We drank iced tea on my porch and watched the hydrangeas nod. "Your daughter's stubborn," Evelyn said approvingly. "That's not always a curse." "I'm stubborn," I admitted. "I thought I could outlove bad choices." "You can't, but you can love the person making them, and you can build a fence around your stuff. Fences are friendly if you paint them nice. At my age, women who love you tell you the truth like it's a casserole, warm, sustaining." On a Tuesday, State Farm cut me a check, $3,400. I looked at it and did the arithmetic of widows. Could I replace the Camry? Not really, but my neighbor Betty's nephew Sam was a mechanic, and he found me a 2010 Corolla with a few dings and a steady engine, beige, naturally, to match every Midwestern parking lot. I named her Agnes, because if a car is going to be plain, let it have dignity. Agnes got me to choir and back.
The car made some things possible again. I drove to the county recorder's homeowner fraud prevention night, where they handed out flyers on deed fraud and talked about flags and alerts. Denise recognized me and hugged me. "You're the reason we got funding for the software upgrade," she said. "We used your story, anonymously, to make the case." I blinked fast so I wouldn't cry. It's so strange, isn't it? How your private pain becomes public good if you put it in a binder and hand it to the right people. As Trevor's trial date approached, his new attorney tried 3 times to get the Waffle House recording suppressed. The judge ruled against him. "Your client speaks clearly about seeking a notary who doesn't always log the journal," she said. "That's a felony magic trick, not business advice." I didn't cheer, but a little line in my chest, tied since June, loosened. The morning of trial, I packed lemon bars for the prosecutor's team. People who fight for you need sugar. I sat behind the state's table and watched Kyle, the notary, testify. He looked wrung out. "Mr. Hale paid me cash," he said. He didn't have the signer with him, but he could bring her later. I stamped an acknowledgement anyway. Then later, when I read about the parcel flag in the county's email, I panicked. I burned my journal page. He blinked. They found it in my trash. Trevor stared at a spot a foot above Kyle's head, like a boy punished in class. When my turn came, I told the truth again. I spoke about Harold, about the Camry, about the gate,
about the cookie tin, about the letter in the mail slot that changed the air in my house. I did not make speeches. I did not collapse. I held steady, like an alto line. Cross-examination was petty, but not cruel. "You're organized, Ms. Whitaker," the defense said, like it was a slur. "I was a unit secretary," I said. "Details are how people live." The jury took a day. I went home and pinched dead blossoms off the hydrangeas, which had the texture of old lace. Lacey called. She said, "I'm on day 43, she said. "Clean. Evelyn says I can get a coin if I make 60. "I'll be there," I said. The verdict? Guilty on all counts. Trevor slumped slightly, then composed himself like a man who wants to be remembered standing tall. The judge scheduled sentencing for the following month. He winked at the camera. A news station had sent a small crew that afternoon, and I felt my age all at once. There are men who think the story stays about them no matter what you do. Don't click away. He'll get what's coming. In the lull before sentencing, the HOA held elections. Gina asked me to run for a board spot. "You're fair," she said, "and you show up." I laughed because my quilt guild says the same thing. I ran. I won. Funny, isn't it? You fight because you have to, and suddenly you're the person others trust to hold the gate keys. At sentencing, 3 homeowners testified about Trevor's consultations. The AG's Consumer Division filed a memorandum. Detective Vargas read a piece of the voicemail where Trevor told me my cookies would burn. The judge, who had hair like she cut it herself with kitchen scissors, a look I trust, leaned forward. "Mr. Hale, adults are allowed to make money. They are not allowed to make it out of other people's names. You targeted elders. You co-opted institutions meant to keep people safe. The sentence must protect the public." She gave him 4 years. Not forever. Enough. Then she turned to Lacey. "Ms. Whitaker," she said, using her married name sounded like hope again, "you have been accepted into the drug court program. You will follow every rule. You will pay restitution to your mother in the amount of $1,500 from the State Farm deductible and fines, and your share of the losses. You will not, under any circumstances, contact Mr. Hale. If you do, you will serve the suspended time." Lacey whispered, "Yes, Your Honor," and her voice held, steady as mine when I sing. Outside the courtroom, after hugs from the prosecutor and a nod from Vargas, Lacey and I stood by the vending machines. The hum made me feel like we were at a bus station. "I'm sorry," she said. "For the car, for the house, for saying I love a car more than you. I was angry and I was wrong, and I was scared." "Scared makes poor counselors," I said. "But fear tells the truth if you listen close." I took her hand, warm and dry. "I love you more than the Camry. But I loved the Camry because it didn't lie. I need you to be like a good car, honestly steady." She smiled small. "Agnes is honest," she said, surprising me. "I've seen you drive off. She fits you." "She's beige," I said. "That helps." Recovery is not a montage. It is Tuesdays at 6 a.m., tests, and Thursdays at 4 p.m. group, and a sponsor who won't co-sign your nonsense. It is me bringing my daughter a rotisserie chicken because she forgot to eat lunch, and telling her I cannot pay her phone bill this month because the boundary is the thing that brought us here. It's me turning her calls off after 10 p.m. so I can sleep, then turning them back on at 7 a.m. so she knows morning is a fresh start.
Trevor appealed, then withdrew it. In prison, he wrote Lacey a letter she gave to Evelyn unopened, which they shredded together in a coffee shop, because not every story requires a reply. The notary took a job at a lumberyard. The UPS store started requiring IDs they actually read. The county recorder put my binder on a shelf as a sample exhibit, with my name redacted.
When neighbors ask me how you prevent deed fraud, I said open your mail, make friends with boring. I kept the HOA seat for one term and used it to push through a rule about late-night fire lane enforcement that didn't involve humiliation, just tickets left politely, and a line in the newsletter about resources for re-entry after incarceration, because not everyone coming home intends harm. Janice made me a solo in the alto line of the Christmas program. Nothing high or showy, just the note you can lean into like a rail on a windy bridge. One afternoon in late spring, Lacey stood on my porch, 2 coins in her palm. 60 days, then 90. She had a job at a thrift store downtown, the kind with color tags and a basement that always smells faintly of dust and hope. Her hair had grown out soft. She handed me an envelope. "First payment," she said. Inside, a money order for $300. It was enough to make me sit down. We celebrated with iced tea and leftover lemon bars. Owen ran tiny cars down the crack in the porch where the concrete had settled. Lacey watched him, a softness around her eyes I hadn't seen in years. "Do you forgive me?" she asked, not looking at me. Forgiveness is not a switch. It's a dimmer on a string that you pull down and it moves slowly, the way summer turns into fall. "Every day," I said, "and some days I don't. Then I start again." She nodded. "That's fair." On the 1-year mark of whatever you want to call it, the collapse and the rebuild, I took Agnes to the car wash with the rainbow soap that smells like a snow cone, and we drove out to the park by the Great Miami River. I brought my quilt in progress, blue triangles for sky, green for the messy kind of grass that grows anywhere uninvited. I stitched and watched a little boy throw a stick for a robust, joyful dog. The stick is always too big. The dog always tries anyway. My cookie tin is fuller now. I keep the letter I wrote Lacey last August inside, with the edges softened by rereading. I keep the HOA fine receipt, not because I'm proud, but because it marks the line where I stopped apologizing for being careful. I keep a copy of the judge's order, the restitution schedule, and an index card where I wrote in my mother's tidy hand from some old recipe card, "Begin as you mean to go on." Last week, a new woman joined our choir. She's 71 and says she hasn't sung since 1969, when she left her small town with a boy and came back alone. We gave her the alto book. During break, we stood in the fellowship hall near the Costco coffee urn and swapped stories, as women do. She told me her daughter lives in Florida and loves her by text message only for now. I told her mine lives 10 minutes away and loves me on Tuesdays at 6:30 and at other inconsistent times. We laughed, not unkindly. We sang the second half like we meant it. Harold would look at all this and shake his head and then make eggs at midnight because some things are healed by heat and fat and a fork. I still make eggs at midnight sometimes. I pull the skillet hot, crack the shells with authority, and watch for the first bubble like a sign. When the spatula slides under and the yolk stays whole, I feel powerful. When it breaks, I feel human. Both are true. If you're waiting for a gotcha where I torch his memory online or post his court documents in the HOA newsletter, you'll be disappointed. My revenge was quieter and sharper. A neat binder, a recorded lunch, a light above my garage, a seat on a small board, and a car named after a great-grandmother who made it through harder winters than mine. The forgiveness I chose is conditional and daily and mine. I still keep a Tupperware labeled Lacey No Nuts in the back of the fridge. Sometimes it holds lemon bars, sometimes it's empty. A little altar to possibility. Last Thursday, she opened it, laughed, and said, "Mom, I can have nuts now." "Good," I said. "I've been saving the pecans." When she left that night, curfew, set by people who are trying to catch her when she falls rather than trap her, I watched Agnes's headlights brush the hydrangeas and then fade. The porch smelled like cut grass and the hand soap we use in the choir room. My house stood, not because I fought dirty, but because I learned to fight clean and often. If you need a moral, and at my age I require one, it's this. Keep your papers where you can find them. Keep your eyes open.
Keep your heart open too, but with a fence. Paint the fence a nice color. Invite people over to admire it. Feed them lemon bars. And if someone tells you they can protect your assets with a stamp and a wink, remember that boring isn't the enemy. Boring is Sunday dinner. Boring is a Corolla that starts. Boring is the alto line holding everyone up while the sopranos float. Boring is safety. I wrote this for women like me, 60-ish and still in motion, a little dented, a little wiser. The world will try you. It will tell you to make yourself small or soft. You can be soft and still hold a spine. You can be generous and still say no. You can love a child and still choose your house. And if your car gets broken and your heart along with it, may you have a good skillet, a better friend on the recorder's desk, and a daughter who, when she is ready, brings you a coin that says she made it through another 30 days. May your revenge be tidy. May your forgiveness be kind. May your porch light stay on. This is my personal experience, shared for awareness and entertainment.
My grandmother told me this story. Thanks for watching this video. Bye bye!